The history of urban Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, begins with Izabej Isaković, the city's founder. On the left bank of the Mijatska River, he built a mosque dedicated to Emperor Mehmed II El Fatih, and then the administrative seat and residence called Sarai, giving Sarajevo its name. Since its beginning in 1462, Sarajevo has been a geographic and historical nerve centre, an inevitable destination for explorers as well as conquerors. Alongside Jerusalem, Sarajevo is the only city where, almost next to one another, there are the temples of four confessions: a mosque, an Orthodox church, a Catholic church, and a synagogue. Throughout the centuries of its existence, in spite of hardships, Sarajevo has been constantly expanding, developing, growing, and living. The most reliable testament to the life of Sarajevo is the graves of the people that populated it. More than 300 cemeteries of various confessions have been registered in the territory of Sarajevo. The numerous contemporary and ancient Muslim cemeteries, known as mezaristans, are scattered in all parts of the city, since the living like to have those who came before them nearby. They wanted their dead to lie close to the world and the people they left behind, to the children whom they gave birth to, and to sleep eternally within view of the window through which they had first seen and heard their beloved. Muslim tombstones are simple, while inscriptions on them are sometimes poetic and masterly formulated. Yet sometimes they do not have a single letter inscribed. The best known Muslim cemetery is no doubt the Ali Fakavats, where for 5 centuries distinguished Sarajevans were laid to rest along with some travellers from faraway places who met their deaths in Sarajevo. Another noteworthy place in Sarajevo is the Gazi Husrev Bey's Mosque, the greatest sacral complex of Islamic architecture in this part of the world. It is named for Gazi Husrev Bey, a Bosnian governor in the 16th century and the greatest ever benefactor of Sarajevo. With his help, many buildings, which still stand today, were built. In the courtyard of the mosque there is a grave called a turbe, in which Gazi Husrev Bey was buried. In the corner of this famous mosque, there is a fountain where passers-by quench their thirst. There is a saying that those who drink water from this fountain are fated to return to Sarajevo. Sarajevans love their city. Its music scene is marked by legendary pop and rock musicians. A film directed by a Sarajevan won an Oscar. Its athletes won the highest European recognitions. Nobel Prize winners were born and educated in Sarajevo. Sarajevo also remembers 1984, when the 14th Winter Olympic Games were held here. Sarajevo Film Festival has hosted world-famous film stars. A special component of Sarajevo is its Jewish cemetery. After the expulsion of Jewry from Spain, many arrived in Sarajevo by the mid-16th century. Their oldest preserved monument dates back to 1630. The tombstones are shaped as rounded sarcophagi, or medieval tombstones known as stechak. These forms are unique in the Jewish world. The changes brought in 1878 with the advent of the Austro-Hungarian occupation have made a visible impact on burial sites and methods in Sarajevo. 2 Orthodox and 2 Catholic cemeteries were opened. In 1917, in addition to these two, the Lion Cemetery opened. During World War I, Austro-Hungarian soldiers were buried in it. After World War II, the Lion Cemetery was officially called the Partisan Cemetery. During the 1992-1995 war, many Sarajevans of all ethnicities and confessions who died or were killed in Sarajevo were buried in the Lion Cemetery. The Catholic St. Michael Cemetery is spatially connected to the Old Orthodox St. Archangel Michael Cemetery. This cemetery was opened in 1884 and used until 1966. It was reopened for burials in 1992 during the siege of Sarajevo. At the St. Archangel Michael Cemetery, there is a chapel known for its walls into which 600 monuments from the 18th and 19th centuries were incorporated. The chapel holds the mortal remains of Gavrilo Princip, the man who assassinated the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife, Sophia. It happened on 28th June 1914. This is considered as the beginning of World War I. The Catholic St. Joseph Cemetery is interesting because of the arcades alongside its entrance, which makes it an architecturally unique cemetery in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Opened in 1884, St. Joseph is the greatest Catholic cemetery in the city. With the Orthodox St. Mark Cemetery, it makes a single spatial unit. The St. Mark Cemetery is dedicated to St. Mark the Evangelist. This mono-navy chapel with a square bell tower is also dedicated to St. Mark. By mid-19th century, Sarajevo had about 20,000 inhabitants, while in the beginning of the 20th century there were about 100,000. Today, the population of the canton of Sarajevo is about 430,000. This growth of population put an imperative requirement to design and open new cemeteries. The cantonal public utility company, Pokop Sarajevo, undertook this important task. On the northeastern slopes of Hum Hill, on an area of 28 hectares, a big city cemetery called Bare was built in 1965. The central part of the Bare Cemetery is a spacious plateau with staircases and a porch that connects 5 chapels: atheist, Catholic, Muslim, Orthodox, and Jewish. The cemetery is created as a park connected to the surrounding space and fully fits into the landscape. In the last several years, this cemetery has become much neater and better equipped than before. During the siege of Sarajevo, more than 10,000 of its inhabitants were killed. Due to the daily artillery fire and sniper attacks on the city, many cemeteries were inaccessible, so the dead were buried in city parks, courtyards, gardens, and in other unusual places. This is why the city administration decided to turn to the ancillary football Koševo Stadium into a burial site. Thus, the stadium cemetery was founded and now has over 2,000 victims of the siege of Sarajevo buried there. In September 1985, when the Bare cemetery was almost full, a new city cemetery, Vlakovo, was built. It is now the largest of all the cemeteries in Sarajevo that is also managed by the Pokop company. Vlahovo is dedicated for the burial of members of all confessions as well as atheists. So far, 35 hectares have been arranged, with 31,500 graves in total, where, until the beginning of 2011, 25,000 people were buried. There are three special parts of the Vlahovo: the War Veterans Alley, dedicated to the burial of fallen combatants, a columbarium for storing urns, and a rosarium for scattering ashes of the dead. In accordance with contemporary technological, moral and aesthetic requirements, the Canton of Sarajevo financed the construction of the Commemoration Centre with a state-of-the-art video and audio technology. Each event in the centre is recorded and kept in a video and audio archive and can be viewed online. A new era means new technologies, new challenges and new standards. But a new era also implies respect for tradition, customs and other cultural values of the milieu. It is from these values that the cantonal public utility company POCUP draws its motivation and, pursuant to its social responsibility, it ensures that the story of Sarajevo Cemetery adheres to urban and European values. One of the poets from Sarajevo expressed his bond with Sarajevo in very moving words. "I feared that I might die outside of Sarajevo."